Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us very much for this joint webinar with Layer 7, and we're very pleased to have Taptera co-presenting with us today. I'm particularly pleased to have Chris O'Connor, who's the CEO and co-founder of Taptera, presenting on our topic today, which is Enterprise Mobile Apps, Beauty and the Beast. My name is Matt McClarty. I'm the VP of Client Solutions for Layer 7. And what does Beauty and the Beast mean? Well, you'll find out a lot more about it, but essentially, when we're dealing in the space of enterprise mobility, we have a really strong and I think, as I'll explain, unique opportunity in the IT space for the enterprise world to have very, what we call beautiful apps, but really that means a lot of things, but really highly functional and highly productive tools for workforce in the enterprise. The beast, on the other hand, is really referring to all the complexity that comes from enterprise IT, and for those of us who've worked in that for years, we know what that's all about. So just before we jump into the topic, I'm going to cover some housekeeping items. So I'm sure you'll have questions as we go through this. Please feel free to put those into the chat box in the webinar, and we'll be able to answer them. We'll have a Q&A section at the end of the call. Please go ahead and follow us on Twitter. We have the hashtag for the webinar today. That's #L7webinar. Also, you can follow the companies or the speakers here. We've got our handles listed. And we have a number of other ways to connect through Facebook, LinkedIn, RSS to get feeds and more information from Layer 7. So let's jump right in and get started on this topic. So we start with beauty. And as I said, there's a big aspect to mobile apps I'm sure that we've all experienced that make using mobile apps very attractive over other applications. They are very visually appealing. I think that even beyond that, though, part of the beauty of the mobile platform is actually the constraints of the platform, which mean that you need to have highly functional apps, very purpose-built, focused apps that allow you to do exactly what you need to do and not have to go beyond that, so that when you use an app, it's there for exactly what you want to use it for, and it has a user experience guided in that direction. The apps are uncluttered, which means that, as opposed to maybe some enterprise apps that feel like old green screens, mobile apps can be very, very focused, as I said. Intuitive. I think the user experience of mobile devices is very intuitive in itself and very smooth. And I think the personal aspect of mobile apps is something that it really brings in what is unique about the mobile platform. But just to give you a sense for what the opportunity is around enterprise mobility, I think it's pretty amazing the stats that we're seeing around mobility. There will be more U.S. internet users accessing the internet through mobile devices than through PCs by 2015. For those of us who are early BlackBerry users and have kind of followed this trend and seen how, WAP browsers and access that way has gone through mobile, it's pretty astounding to see the explosion of internet usage through mobile devices that we've seen, certainly through the introduction of the iPhone, but explosively through the introduction of the iPad and its big focus on the browsing experience. From an enterprise and workforce perspective, by 2015, in the same time period, you'll have 1.3 billion people in the workforce having access through mobile devices to their work activities, which is an astounding percentage of the overall workforce in the world. And I think that, you're seeing stats around usage of mobile in China, for example, and it's very explosive. What's not listed here, what we could list, though, are a number of stats around the BYOD movement, so bring your own device. And these really go hand in hand with, I think, the explosion that you're seeing in enterprise mobility. More and more companies are accepting policies around allowing employees to bring their personal devices and use them for workforce activities to connect into the enterprise environments. There's somewhat of a resistance movement in the IT community and the enterprise, but all the statistics that we're seeing say that resistance is futile. Even if there's no policy allowing it, it's happening anyway. I think it's something like 70% of iPad users are using their iPads for work. So there's a lot of drivers around what is pushing mobile in the enterprise. Consumerization and BYOD is one vector. Verticalization, the need for being able to leverage mobile technologies for new usages that you couldn't before, sending workers out on the shop floor with mobile devices where they couldn't go there previously with PCs. Just new device and device categories. You know, we're seeing we've seen smartphones mature, but now we're seeing the tablet market maturing. You know, you've heard terms like phablet or mini tab, all these things happening. Even beyond that, you've got M2M as a space where smart devices are now able to communicate through wireless means and connect into enterprise assets. So there's a huge push towards mobile driving the next major IT paradigm. And we'll talk more about the impact of that on the infrastructure in the enterprise and the architecture in the enterprise. But it's pretty clear that there's no reversing course here. Mobile is having a revolutionary effect on the enterprise world. And I think that we're at a point where we have a unique opportunity to leverage this in a way, as I said, that we couldn't in previous shifts. I think people love the internet when it first came out, but in the enterprise world, there was a lot of restrictions in place at the get-go. I think over time, web applications were able to leverage some of the best parts of the internet browsing experience, but in a lot of cases, from a functional perspective, big enterprise apps that were moved into the web app paradigm really mimicked some of the big, heavy, thick client or even terminal green screen type functions and applications that we'd seen previously. What's different with mobile is, let's face it, like, you know, and I'm an addict myself. Mobile devices have become an extension of people's selves. You know, you see different greeting cards and things talking about, you know, I'm going to invite my friends over tonight to play with, so we can all play with our phones. You know, it really has become like a toy for a lot of people, meaning that it's what they want to use, it's what they want to work on, it's what they want to do everything on. And there's an opportunity in the enterprise world to leverage the goodwill or you know, from a positive perspective, from a negative perspective, the crack-like addiction of the mobile device for the purposes of the company. You know, as much as there's resistance in enterprise IT around the potential security impacts of allowing personal devices on the network, there's a huge upside in saying, if I deliver function to my employees on their favorite toy, they're going to be much more likely to use those functions and be more productive with it. And let's face it, you know, if they're going to be browsing and playing games on company time, it's much more likely that they're going to be doing work off company time when they've got their apps right there at their disposal on the favorite toy. And the fact that when they're using these, and the reason they're using these devices like that is because the user experience is so positive and so intuitive. That just incents usage. It makes people want to use those apps more. Anything you deliver to them on there, they're going to want to use more. It's going to be smoother for them. Productivity is going to go up. And in terms of accessibility, as I alluded to before, the mobile devices, they're ubiquitous to begin with. But what that means is you're not limited to a desktop office environment. Mobile is what it is. People are able to move around with the devices and go places that they couldn't before, do jobs they couldn't before. As an example, you know, in the healthcare industry, we're seeing a lot of very explosive usage of the iPad for, let's say, pharmaceutical sales forces who get very limited time with medical professionals. It allows them to very quickly demonstrate their capabilities. in a setting that otherwise it would be too cumbersome using older PC technology. So there's also new capabilities in the form factor. So going along with the mobility is geolocation and presence, a lot of usage and potential for photo capabilities. You know, if you think about an insurance case where maybe you're filing a claim and you want to take a picture right on the spot. So they're always on, you know, just the accessibility is a huge advantage as well. And also the speed and the consumability to compel the usage of the devices. And I think that we'll talk more about what beautiful apps are, but the key to all these benefits, and this is an important point, is that the mobile apps themselves follow these principles and deliver on these potential benefits. Because if you go back and deliver a user experience that feels like a green screen, you're not going to get these benefits, which, you know, this is the upside of the mobile, enterprise mobile revolution. And what we'll see with Taptera later in the webinar are some fantastic examples of enterprise apps built the right way, built to leverage all these potential benefits, leverage the capabilities of the device, and leverage really the expected experience of the user. But just before we go into that demonstration, let's talk a bit about the beast. And as I said, if you've worked in enterprise IT, you'll be very familiar with what we're dealing with in terms of the infrastructure and application landscape within the enterprise. You've got multiple systems, multiple protocols, different connecting components. Oftentimes, you know, many of these individual components will be used within a single business process flow, and you end up with spaghetti. And really, from a mobile perspective, we've heard the term cloud computing used in many different ways. Really, from a mobile perspective, anything that's behind the device is the cloud. And so, in addition to the complexity that you'll deal with even in a single data center for a lot of enterprises, you've got additional complexity around the different cloud services that they can leverage. So this is the complexity we have to deal with. And to break it down, there are challenges around mobile. I mentioned earlier security. How do you deal with identity management? The application data lifecycle. So, you know, how do you provide access and provision applications out to devices and remove when it's not appropriate for the person to have them anymore. If it's somebody who joined the company, you need to get them the enterprise apps. If they leave, you need to get rid of those apps and data without wiping the device because it's their personal device in the BYOD context. There's the complexity around deployment of new mobile apps, all the complexity around integration that addresses what I showed on the previous slide. Technology-wise, we're seeing a lot of fragmentation even around operating systems on mobile and a very rapid pace of change. And of course, governance issues that come around things like privacy. What's the demarcation point between enterprise assets and employee assets and information and so on. There are a number of challenges that have to be dealt with in order to facilitate that beautiful app experience. So just before we get into the demonstration of the Taptera apps, here's a picture of what I call the shedding of tears, and this is the big shift that's happening in the world of enterprise IT as a result of the mobile paradigm. You know, early as we went through the web application paradigm, we kind of had this three-tier model of presentation, logic, and data. We saw really a coupling of presentation and business logic in a lot of cases through business processes and flows and so on, probably driven mostly by a similarity in the technology underpinnings of those two tiers, but a very clear demarcation point between presentation logic and then the data tier, where it was very clear you'd have a relational database for all your data stores and expose your data access services in a very delineated fashion. What we're seeing now is two shifts. So we're talking a lot about mobile today, but you probably also are dealing with the whole capabilities around big data, where we're collecting massive amounts of unstructured data and being able to utilize that. This is a fundamental value proposition of big data, being able to leverage that in real time, either through sourcing the data or through accessing the data in useful ways. And as a result of that, we're seeing a pullback now from where the business logic and the data logic are being mashed together, and we're getting a combined set of business and data services where it's not so easy to delineate what's happening between the logic and the data tiers, because you want to have more rapid access and more analytics of that data in real time as part of the business functions. At the same time, we're seeing the shift to mobile, where now the presentation experience is being pulled into the mobile tier. So a lot of the user experience now resides on the mobile devices. We're not seeing that three-tier model anymore. We're seeing a much more delineated model between what's happening on the user experience in the mobile world and then what's happening in the service layer or with business and data functions. And what is the new perimeter that results from that is really APIs. And APIs is an older term, but in this context, it really means web APIs, network accessible interfaces that expose the business and data functions in a way that's very friendly to the mobile devices and other consuming platforms. Obviously, it's not like mobile means that PCs go away. There's still a lot of usefulness for the form factor of user experience on PC and other means. But what's happening is, because of this pull from the mobile world, these APIs are becoming popularized in a way that suits mobile and suits other platforms as well. With BYOD specifically, there's another context here, which is not only do we have this architectural shift, but now from a governance and security perspective, that user experience may reside on an asset that's not company-owned in the mobile setting. We said this is a personal device hosting a company and enterprise user experience. As a result, we really have this new perimeter that forms functionally for integration purposes as well as security-wise. And this new landscape is what we're seeing evolving in the enterprise space. So a lot of maybe internal interfaces that were being utilized in an SOA context can now be exposed as APIs that are very friendly in the mobile context. But just all sorts of business functions that are needed to enable the mobile experience are now going into this context. And there are other APIs that are very specific to the mobile devices experience that are useful, such as things like large data caching, and other APIs specific to mobile. So that's a landscape. That's how we're sorting out the beast of the enterprise IT behind the scenes. But right now, I'd like to pass it over to Chris to take you through the beautiful experience of mobile apps with Taptera.
Thanks a lot, Matt, and thank you, everyone. Good morning. Before I get started, I wanted to just spend a moment introducing Taptera and giving you an idea of the background and why I'm so uniquely qualified to speak about beautiful apps. So my name is Chris O'Connor, and I'm CEO of Taptera. We're a group of folks building productivity apps for large companies. We focus on general productivity and sales productivity. And we've been building apps in one form or another for mobile platforms since the introduction of the iPhone back in 2007. At large companies have built, I think, at last count, a total of 43 throughout various team members. We started Taptera about a year ago to take our knowledge and to build great, beautiful, secure apps for large enterprises. So I thought I'd walk you through really what we think are the two key qualities to making terrific apps. Like to think that mobile apps are becoming the face of companies to their employees, because companies spend most of their time with IT systems and not either in meetings or kind of working independently. And oftentimes, face is not too pretty. It's kind of functional, focused on more of the management of information and trying to the needs of use, I guess I'd say. So we're here to change that. We're creating beautiful faces for applications for IT staff to offer their employees. And along the road, we really found that there are two key differentiators when we're talking about mobile apps and kind of the change to how we're delivering solutions within the large company. The first, this covers kind of a range of topics, but the first is that these apps must be intuitive that intuition is kind of the key to making these apps as easy as possible. You're looking for applications that don't require training, don't require, in most cases, a login, and I think Matt's going to go into ways that well, and the Layer 7 technology can help there. That frankly don't require that users remember how they use the application or what feature or function they need to go into to get the work done. So I think in the past, IT systems would often require users to log in, specify the system they're connecting to, through many different screens and features. But in the app world, we've definitely learned from consumer experience that an application has to be simple, extremely easy to use, and require really no significant thought to get in to do your work and then to get on with your life. And I'll show you an example of one of the applications that we've built in just a second that we think embodies this intuition. And then the second quality, the key differentiator that we see is that apps must be focused. So if you're looking at more traditional tools like ERP vendors, and not disparaging ERP, that's definitely a necessary component of any enterprise, but ERP vendors, document management systems, et cetera, in general, they're trying to solve a broad scope of problems, right? They're trying to help manage supply chain and your financials, and even your maintenance requests. Well, in the app space, it's really the opposite. You're trying to focus your need on a very specific problem or a very specific opportunity. Oftentimes, folks start talking about business processes and how apps support business processes. It's kind of trying to digest those processes into very bite-sized chunks. Things like if you're onboarding an employee, literally, how does the person get to their first room, get to their office? How do they learn what their phone number is? How do they learn who to call if they have a benefits problem? Those sorts of very discrete or very, very focused applications. As part of this focus, what we've learned over time is that there's actually one role that typically hinders focus, and that's what we call the HIPPO within a large organization. HIPPO stands for highly placed person with an opinion, and those are usually the folks who are driving or managing a problem, like employee onboarding or maintenance requests, or even something as simple as CRM or Salesforce productivity. So they're managing the problem, but they don't actually live with the problem. They're not the users or not the employees who are experiencing the problem or the pain. And so when building mobile apps, it's very important to differentiate between the person who is sort of sponsoring or leading the effort to bring an app in versus those who are actually using the application. And at Taptera, we focus the majority of our attention and time energy on the people who are using the applications and the people who are kind of managing or sponsoring it. So I think that's a decent overview. And now I'd like to use some new technology to give you a glimpse of our apps. And I'm sure WebEx will cooperate, so give me just a moment while I switch over. This is a tool called Airserver. It's a pretty amazing product, not to plug other products while we're on our demo, but we found it to be the easiest, most seamless way to present your iPad on your computer on a WebEx. And I think it also embodies this simplicity. It's just a simple program that I turn on my pad and on my desktop, and it just works. So I'm going to walk through two of our applications. The first one, the application that we call Rooms, is a great example of that kind of intuitive, focused effort. And Rooms is that it's a space management system, so it allows employees to very quickly and easily look at available conference rooms that are near them. So it's really focused on that mobile context of finding a conference room now, immediately. And I've just launched the application. You should see it loading. So you'll notice as we go into our Rooms application, imagine I'm an employee and I'm on the third floor of building 23 in our headquarters, and I need to grab a conference room. I could go back to my desk and load up other tools and kind of click through email, and eventually get to my whatever calendaring system I use to reserve a room. But in a mobile context, we have an opportunity to give someone, to kind of lead someone directly to solving their problem. And so with our rooms application, we've taken a lot of time and energy to think about what does someone really need when they're walking around the halls in a large company and they need to reserve a conference room. And we've really focused on one or two kind of key points that allow us to streamline, kind of nail that intuition, and then nail the focus and kind of get rid of a lot of screens. The first one is that we realize that most people, when they're looking for a conference room in the moment, want a conference room near them. It sounds a little bit obvious, in hindsight, but the idea that you want a conference room on the other side of the campus right now is usually, 99% of the time, not the case. And so with the phone, you can take advantage of GPS and location services, or I should say the phone of the past, location services to do things like filter on conference rooms that are only available near you. Now that may be hard from a technical perspective, and it may introduce some technical complexity, but as Matt mentioned, with the architecture is moving so much of that complexity out of the client and down into the kind of cloud systems or the backend servers, it's complexity that's pretty easy to manage and deal with. So I mentioned 2 points. The first one is that we're looking for rooms that are A, and B, rooms that are free. And again, that may sound sort of obvious or in hindsight, but in terms of intuition, if you're looking for a conference room, you're not going to want to book one that's already in use. And so our application, we've taken great pains to make sure that right when someone opens up the application, it's showing them conference rooms that are near them and that are available. And so you end up with a very short, concise list because most companies, those rooms are in high demand. But we're able to then give someone a tool that they can use in a matter of 30 seconds, bring up, reserve a conference room, and then go back to their work. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm looking at the technology that I'm using and just waiting for our screen to update. If not, I may bounce into the second application. Let's see. So I'll continue on with the demo. I'm going to re-share the application just to make sure that we're in good shape. And coming up again. Yes. So I just wanted to quickly point out one other element of kind of intuition and focused design, and that is visuals. So I'm showing you now a screenshot of one of the conference rooms that's available in this application. Employees are used to dealing with tools like Outlook or Google products, that web applications that show a list of conference rooms, but so much context is lost in just a text-based description, and so much can be gained from something as simple as a picture. And so we've made sure that all of our applications take a maximum use of photos, audio, visual, etc., because the human mind really looks for that information and can then kind of process it quickly and easily. And again, go back to understanding the application without needing any additional training. So thank you for listening to my overview of rooms. I have one other application that I think is a very good standard or a very good example of kind of removing a lot of complexity from traditional enterprise systems. So our second application that I'll show you that Taptera has built is called Collateral, and I won't rate it. Looks like it's on the screen. This is a very straightforward yet powerful file viewer. So large companies have large content management systems, as I mentioned. They have a lot of different components. They support workflow and authoring and versioning of documents. But what we found is that the average salesperson spends 95% of their time actually viewing these documents or sharing them, right? And you're not necessarily concerned with all of the features of the underlying system. And so one of the other applications that we built at Taptera, we call Collateral, and it's a very straightforward, seamless way of viewing your files that are out on your content management system. And then you might ask yourself, after I have files, what are maybe the top 1 or 2 things that I want to do with those files? And the first that we found was quickly bring those files offline so I can share them even when I'm not connected, because unfortunately, networks are not always reliable, and so So it's important that people have a way of viewing their files when they're offline. So I'm pulling up another screen, so I'll pause for just a second. It looks like we're delayed a tiny bit. So we have the ability to take files offline, and then we have the ability to share those files with other people. And really, that's the core of this application. We've optimized it so that people can get in, view their files, remove that complexity from the underlying system, focus on their work, have a very intuitive but easy to understand interface, and then as they open files, and we'll see if this works with kind of a lag presentation, but and it might lag a little too much, so I think I might maybe I'll sum up and then go back over the map. So to summarize, we both Layer 7 and Taptera are strongly focused on helping companies solve the mobile application solve their mobile application strategy. That traditionally applications that employees have are not the friendliest to use, are designed for broad, kind of platform usage, and don't support employees' needs in the moment. These tablets and phones offer a great opportunity to change that face and to put a beautiful face on it. And with focus, with an intuition, it's definitely achievable. And as a result, you can improve employee productivity and definitely improve the happiness of your employees and your colleagues. So thank you. I'll now pass it back over to Matt so that he can continue with this conversation.
Thanks. All right, thank you very much, Chris. And I think you hit on this point a couple of times, and it's important. And I'm sure most people on the call are mobile device users and of varying flavors. You can look at some of the functions that you've got in the applications and say, well, functionally, I could do it this way or that way. I think that the key to these apps, as you said, there's visual appeal. It's kind of greater than the sum of its parts. It's streamlining it, making it purpose-built for exactly what the user wants, making the user experience very intuitive, and just making it visually appealing and attractive. I think, if you compare what you can do in a Gmail, iPhone app versus what you've seen in some of the visual capabilities and just the fast access to the need, it's the apps that Taptera has put together, and you've seen a couple of them, there are a number more, are exactly along the lines of what I think is the great potential for enterprise mobility. And I think that the interesting thing as well, I think from you hit on this point as well, this becomes increasingly a part of an employee's relationship with their company. And that goes right up the chain to the hippos, as you describe them, to the highest level, highest ranking members of an organization. There's a lot more user investment from the CEO, the CIO, other ranking members when it comes into the mobile apps, because they're just going to be users and oftentimes are early adopters of some of the mobile technologies. So I think having this experience for your company, getting the productivity benefits, it's just really valuable for going through what we're seeing as a major sea change in the IT landscape. And but even to follow along what I said, there are going to be different approaches to it, and I think it would be regrettable for companies to go and just forklift all of their functional requirements out of their 1,500 screen thick client employee application and try and move that to mobile. It's going to be impractical and defeating, and probably not save any time. I think taking the beautiful app approach is definitely the way to go. And layer 7 now, if we move in, our job is to tame the beast. So to facilitate, to really simplify as much as it can be simplified, the complexities around getting the data and getting access to the existing business processes in the organization, so that the mobile app developers can be liberated and focus on providing that beautiful user experience. To do that, we are launching a new, I don't know if everyone is seeing a very, highly animated mobile access gateway, but we're launching this mobile access gateway technology, which is, from our perspective, a beautiful thing, but it's just really dealing with for lack of a better word, the ugliness of the complexity that we deal with in the enterprise or IT. So dealing with the challenges around identity, whether that's just user access control or whether it becomes cross-company federated identity and dealing with some of those challenges, three-legged OAuth, these types of new paradigms that are cropping up so that you can leverage internal systems and external APIs in the context of a single enterprise mobile application. Security, ensuring that as we open up access to internal enterprise assets, they are appropriately protected. Obviously, the most secure solution is just not to allow anyone access at all, but there's a real art to allowing access to the enterprise assets without compromising security. Adaptation, so being able to deal with the multiple protocols and formats within an organization and outside of an organization, and here really translating those formats into what is best for the mobile device. So one thing that I think we have a unique offering around is Layer 7's experience integrating within enterprise systems, going back to legacy systems and historical protocols, dealing with the archaeology of finding data in an organization, and then translating that into the formats that are friendly to mobile. JSON for data formatting, REST-based interaction protocols, and as I already mentioned, OAuth, but also introducing new identity paradigms like OpenID Connect and so on, and bridging those to the internal enterprise identity management infrastructure so that companies, as they go on this, adapt to this mobile wave, they can utilize their existing infrastructure, but present it in a way that's very friendly towards the mobile side. Optimization. So a lot of the functions that I've just described are ones that have been readily available in our solution set for some time and have evolved very nicely and have given us a leadership position in the API management space. I think some of what is unique in the mobile access gateway that we offer is our optimization capabilities, specifically for mobile. So there are APIs that are necessities for mobile app development. When you're developing on a mobile platform, you're power constrained, you're data constrained, memory constrained, much more than in a server-to-server type context that we'd have in the web app world. So we are offering in the mobile access gateway the ability to utilize new protocols for bidirectional communication in a very fast way for HTML5, utilizing WebSockets, optimizing for caching, which is a key in order to do large object storage that can be accessed quickly in a tailored way for the mobile apps. And then the last pieces are really around integration, so being able to cover across different domains of data, internal assets, databases, APIs, external APIs, web services, and so on. So all of these functions together delivered in a single mobile access gateway at the perimeter of the enterprise really fits with the model that I showed earlier around the shedding of tiers and the new landscape of enterprise infrastructure. And really, helps to provide those APIs out to the mobile development community so that companies like Taptera, who are building the right enterprise apps, can get the access to the enterprise assets they need in the most optimized way, in the easiest way, but in a very well-protected way, so that, as they're dealing with their enterprise clients, they can give assurances that they're going to meet the highest, most stringent governance specifications and regulations. Just to drill into some scenarios around this, as I said, a big value proposition of our mobile access gateway is is not just that we can do OAuth. I think there's a lot of adoption of OAuth happening in the industry today, and there's a rapid evolution of associated identity specs like OpenID Connect and JSON Web Tokens, which for some reason is abbreviated to JOTS. But there are various different emerging standards, and they are taking off rapidly, not just in the mobile context, but in the web context, in the social context, to allow for things like authenticating usage against Facebook or against your Google Plus for the purposes of accessing protected resources without having to share credentials across these different entities. This is being very popularized, and you'll find a lot of vendors out there that will offer support for say, OAuth as an example. But the real value proposition in enterprise mobility context here is not only are we experts in OAuth, not only can we provide industry-leading OAuth capability in our technology, but we can easily bridge that into your existing world of enterprise identity. And I think that really is a unique proposition. So whether you're using SiteMinder for your internal identity management and access control, or whether you're using LDAP or Active Directory or other even proprietary means of policy enforcement, we can connect with that and bridge between the new mobile world and the existing enterprise world. And this allows you to do, all of our, the mobile access gateway utilizes our very slick policy language that's standards-based that allows you to define very elaborate policies and enforce them at runtime and connect into all these different endpoints. So another interesting thing that we're seeing, a lot of the security world that's happening, even OAuth as an example, we're still leveraging the same PKI basics that have been leveraged across the board in the whole web security domain. So it's still very important to have certificate-based security, and it still factors in to all of these new and emerging specs. And again, being able to provide delivery and provisioning for that is key. And we again position the mobile access gateway here as the perimeter component in the enterprise that allows that secure connectivity and identity enforced security around the enterprise. But it's not just identity focused. We do have more security protections to cover the REST-based APIs, SOAP-based APIs, and even OData and other ways of exposing those data assets. A lot of companies now are looking at, following again that pattern of combining business and data services. Really, how can we have data, we have a data warehouse, we have data assets, we need to just get that exposed, but you want to do that in a very secure way. So we have all the means to protect against that, protect against things like SQL injection, protect against denial of service attacks built into the mobile access gateway to provide those same protections for the mobile web. I mentioned WebSockets before. Again, the big concern around bidirectional protocols like WebSockets, and we also have support for XMPP in terms of presence-type, chat-type communication. A big concern around that is security, and we have the security protections in place to guard against those unique threats as well. And we have HSM potential capability if you want to protect all the key materials. That is a part of our heritage as technology that is deployed in the most secure IT environments in the world. And also even just validating data exchanges, having a very lightweight enforcement point to ensure that all the data coming in and going out is the appropriate formats. This actually ends up being a protection not just against malicious attacks, but against accidental attacks from configuration management errors in the enterprise. So all of this, having a single point of access for the outside world to the internal enterprise assets has a lot of value in this context and beyond. And here's an illustration of how we protect in the context now if there was anyone trying to access those assets within the enterprise. Translating and orchestrating the data in the APIs is fundamental. Once again, just like with security protocols, you're dealing with so many different types of applications. On the mobile side, as I said, mobile OS fragmenting, different actual device types, but probably even more so inside the enterprise, where you've got maybe data assets only in a database, some business assets that might be in a Java application, some .NET thrown in there, even some mainframe type assets. All that stuff, you're not necessarily going to want to expect your mobile device to write messages to an MQQ in order to hit the mainframe, right? You want to make sure that the mobile apps can utilize their own native language, being REST JSON, and be able to connect back into those enterprise assets. So that's what the Layer 7 Mobile Access Gateway does really well, and probably better than any other technology out there. Being able to talk native tongue to the mobile app world, and then native tongue back in the enterprise app world, whatever that native tongue may be. Furthermore, being able to expose, consolidate information from a number of enterprise points and present that as a single API out to the mobile world is a very big value proposition. I mentioned that optimization, I think, is somewhat of a new and unique capability of the Mobile Access Gateway. And that's because beyond just saying, what do we need to expose from the enterprise for these mobile apps, there are specific functions that the mobile apps require that just work better off the device. I keep citing this example because it's fundamental and is a need for pretty much every mobile app. When you have large blobs of complex data that you need to access quickly, you don't want to store big chunks of memory on the device itself. You might run out of memory. It might not be the most optimized use of memory. At the same time, you don't want to have to go and assemble multiple relational queries to try and extract that information from a back-end system. What you want to have is a very specifically defined, purpose-built data set that you can get to in an indexed way very quickly. And what we offer here at the Mobile Access Gateway is the ability to be able to pull that information in a complex way from the enterprise assets and then cache it in an optimized way for the mobile devices. So whether it's through an enterprise API call that gets cached and then can be reused for future calls from the mobile device, or whether it is the mobile device itself just wanting to utilize some cloud-based storage through the Mobile Access Gateway, either of those cases can be solved through this optimization capability. Similarly, when you're dealing with hypermedia-based APIs where the first call in an API may return a number of links, we can leverage the Mobile Access Gateway to prefetch, using those links, prefetch those API calls so that the second call in a sequence from a mobile device gets information much more quickly without having to rely on an end-to-end back-end call. This is something that is very new in the Mobile Access Gateway and something that I think we find it being very powerful. I know in talking to Chris, you definitely see value in this feature for Taptera, and certainly it's something that liberates the mobile devices from having to deal with the complexity of the back-end data. Last but not least, centralizing the connectivity to the cloud has a lot of benefits. If you think about, you're dealing with, in a BYOD context, a personal device making calls out to multiple sources. Could be calling into the enterprise, in which case you might have a way of logging that access and tracking it. But you could also be making API calls out into Twitter and Facebook and other access points on the mobile web. How are you going to track that usage? Going through a Mobile Access Gateway gives you full visibility into all the activity that the app is executing in terms of network access. Furthermore, it's giving you the ability to to consolidate access and optimize the path for the mobile access gateway. So instead of having to do, having the potential for a call out to another system being interpreted as a cross-site scripting attack, it leverages a single host capability using the mobile access gateway, and then allows the mobile access gateway to make those external calls. We're kind of illustrating this as an end user on a PC, but this could very easily be the end user in the mobile device. And you put all these things together and you have a consolidated access point. One of the things that we've encountered in working with Taptera, for example, is a use case where a company wants to use, let's say, Gmail, and we need to get that data for the room bookings, as an example, to go back into the rooms application and then consolidate all that information and optimize it. One of the discussions we've had is around utilizing the mobile access gateway as a means of enforcing more granular security policies to some of these cloud-based services. In some cases, when you try and adapt some of the web-based technologies like Gmail into the enterprise context, it doesn't come with the same granularity that's required around enterprise access control and so on. That's just one example of a use case where you can use the mobile access gateway to create more granular policies and then enforce them while still leveraging just the stock capabilities of the cloud service, and then optimizing that for the mobile app and then ensuring you're meeting your enterprise policies. So that's a lot to digest. Just to summarize what we've talked about today, mobility really driven by BYOD is sweeping enterprise IT right now. I don't want to be flippant about it, but if anyone says in IT says, oh, we're not going to support BYOD, not in my house, it's just they're going completely against all the statistics that have been lined up. It's happening whether IT groups want it to or not, but that's not a bad thing, because if you embrace BYOD, you'll find that through beautiful apps on the mobile devices, through leveraging the incentive of users playing with their favorite toy, you can get great productivity benefits out of it. And Taptera's apps are a great example of apps built the right way, leveraging the native capabilities of the device, providing a very unique, intuitive user experience, very streamlined and highly functional for the user and visually appealing to ensure that they want to use those apps and they're getting exactly what they need. Nevertheless, we still, in an enterprise context, will always have to deal with the complexity of identity and integration and optimization. And when you utilize the Layer 7 mobile access gateway, our goal is to really help solve that complexity in the best way possible and really lay the foundation for Taptera's beautiful apps and other apps built the right way. Thank you very much for attending today. At this point, we'd like to open it up to the questions that we've got in the chat box. So right off the bat, there's a question around, will it be possible to get a copy of the slides? Yes, we definitely will be publishing and sharing not just the slides, but a recording of the webinar that we've had, and as well as our library of other webinars that you may find interesting. We've covered the enterprise mobility and BYOD topics on previous ones as well. Okay, I have a question around smart card integrated authentication. Now that's an interesting one. I think it speaks to what I would describe as where we are in the state of mobile apps in enterprise and really in complex business processes. I think we saw recently there was an announcement that we've got, Box doing payment for Starbucks, as an example of utilizing mobile in a new business context. That's not smart card. But I think that, smart card integrated authentication, I assume what you would mean that you would want to somehow have a smart card hook up into a mobile context. Again, a lot of the smart card-based authentication comes through through certificate-based security. So we have multi-factor authentication available through the gateway, and certainly the way that the information we passed, encrypted and so on, can be handled. In terms of having a specific example of that, I haven't been through one personally, but I know that OAuth as an evolving standard is one that is looking to cover a number of different use cases around identity authentication and authorization. So, you know, if you just look at from a web-based context, it's going to depend how the actual mobile world evolves to presenting those types of multi-factor credentials. But in terms of how we would handle it on the gateway side, it's certainly something that we could handle today through either protocols from the web app world, or if it's supportable through any of the OAuth use cases, we could handle it that way as well. But in terms of, I think there's still room to grow and evolve in terms of how that actually plays out with mobile devices, whether they'll come in certain cases with, you know, hybrid devices built specifically for certain purposes with smart card readers, or whether it'll be peripheral components. But I think overall mobile is just such an exciting space because of the because we don't know how things are going to play out completely, and which is why we have this great opportunity to really make sure that they are done in a good way. Okay, well, I don't know, Chris, if there's is there anything you'd like to add before we conclude?
Just to sum up, just wanted to voice my appreciation, Matt and Layer7, for hosting us, and I'm very excited about the new capabilities that they're bringing to bear, and how they're also helping Taptera bring fast, secure, beautiful enterprise apps into the enterprise. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Chris. Great to see the demo live, and of course, we always enjoy working together. Okay, we actually have a question for you, Chris. I think, what was the most important lesson you'd learned once you released your apps? If you could look back, I guess, with hindsight at the first release, you know, what would be the thing, that major assumption that you'd want to take into consideration?
Yeah, I think it's I mean, it's a variant of the KISS principle, if you've heard that, which is an acronym for Keep It Simple, Stupid. But it's really the idea that you'll never create an app that is too simple, and there's always, I believe there's always an opportunity. Sometimes it, you know, requires a lot of thought or a lot of you know, technology on the back end, but there's always an opportunity to simplify further. I mean, I think a great example is where Siri is trying to go in making, you know, voice the primary way that you can interact with your phone and your apps sometime in the future. And that's what we just keep seeing. You know, we'll make assumptions about how people are going to look at information, filter information, interact with the apps, and there's pretty much always some simpler way. And that's what we're constantly striving for. That's a great question.
Yeah, and that's a great insight in terms of how this differs, I think, from the web app world as well, where, you know, I think a lot of times releases for web apps, it's add another bell, add another whistle, whereas I think more than ever with mobile apps, you have to be thinking about, you know, everything that comes in. You don't want to compromise the simplicity and the intuition that goes into the experience. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. We're a little over time. I appreciate everyone's attendance, and if you have any follow-ups, please feel free to utilize the social means that we put up front or other channels that you may have, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you.